Welcome to Your Mac Life for Wednesday, September 21st, 2016, show number 1110. I'm your host, Shawn King. The last day of summer here in the Northern Hemisphere, the last day of winter for our friends down in the Southern Hemisphere, in Australia and Japan and all those places. Supposedly Antarctica. I never got an email from Antarctica, so I call bullshit on Scott Thrift. All right, Scott, I'm just saying. All right? Thank you guys very much for joining me, whether you're tuned in live or listening in via the archive. As always, send us emails to the show at onair@yourmaclifeshow.com. If you want to comment on anything we talk about during the show, I'd love getting emails from you guys during the show or during the week. You can send emails to Shawn@yourmaclifeshow.com. Sherry says Japan's in the Northern Hemisphere. Is it? All right, I'll check on that. But I'm sure she's right. She's a smart girl. On tonight's show, we'll talk to a good friend, as always, Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. We'll talk about macOS 10. No, sorry, I got to get it right. macOS Sierra. It's no longer macOS 10. How many of you have already installed Sierra? It came out yesterday. I haven't installed it on my main computer, this one right here, because it was show day today. I installed it on a backup computer. I haven't played around with it very much. There's not a lot in Sierra that is attractive to me. There's a lot of new functionality, but a lot of it's stuff I don't care that much about. So I want to know what you guys think. I'll install it tomorrow after I do a full backup this evening. But any thoughts about Sierra? Any good things that you guys have found about Sierra? Any things that you want to talk about? Send me emails to onair@yourmaclifeshow.com. Also, iOS 10. iOS 10, I think iOS 10 is a bigger deal to me, if only because there's more there. The new lock screen I really like. The new notification screen I really like. The new iMessages is kind of fun. It'll get tiresome very quickly if you know someone who sends a lot of stickers or emojis or that kind of stuff with iMessage. But it's kind of cute. It's kind of nice. So that's more of a big deal for me, iOS 10, than Sierra is going to be, probably. I'm just guessing right now. Talk to Jim about that. We're also going to talk about these utterly ridiculous rumors of Apple buying McLaren, the Formula One car company, for any number of reasons, none of which make a whole lot of frickin' sense. And according to the New York Times, Apple is in talks with this company called Lit that makes, as everyone says, a self-propelled or standy-uppy motorcycle. It's not a motorcycle. It's a two-wheeled car. We'll talk about that with Jim later on in the show. And in our starting point photography segment, Matthew Panzerini over at TechCrunch had an article today about the new portrait mode in the iOS 10 beta. That's available for those folks who play around with the beta. He has some pictures on TechCrunch.com. We'll talk about portrait mode, what it is, how you can use it now today, and we'll also do a little critique of his photos. And as I said earlier, it's a gentle critique because I'm not going to make fun of his children. There's nothing to make fun of. They're gorgeous. Or his wife, who's beautiful. And his new son is named Enzo. Enzo. Kid's name is Enzo Panzerino. That's cool. You got a cool name, little fella. Good for you. Your dad, your mom gave you a cool name. Enzo. That's great. But he's got some interesting... not issues. Issues is the wrong word. He's got some interesting things to talk about in those photos over at TechCrunch.com. We'll talk about those in our starting point photography segment, along with telling you guys what this depth of field blur bokeh stuff is. Saw this story and wanted to talk to you guys about it last week. And there's no Mac stuff. I don't know why I find this stuff fascinating, but did you see the story last week? Transformers, Nerf, and Bubble Wrap among finalists for the National Toy Hall of Fame. I just kind of like the idea that there's a National Toy Hall of Fame, which I think is kind of cool. There's a Hall of Fame for toys. But here's the full list of the finalists for the National Toy Hall of Fame. And only 3 can go in. All right? So if you had a vote, which of these 3 things would you add to the National Toy Hall of Fame? Keeping in mind, it's not what you like, but it's their staying power over multiple generations, whether it fosters learning or creativity through play, and whether it's innovative. Okay, so keep that in mind. These are three things. Bubble wrap. Now, say I don't think of bubble wrap as a toy. Care Bears, Clue. Remember the game Clue? Coloring books, Dungeons and Dragons, Fisher-Price Little People, Nerf, Pinball, Rock'em Sock'em Robots, a swing, Transformers, and the card game Uno. Which three of those would you pick to inaugurate in the National Toy Hall of Fame? Now, I would right away throw away bubble wrap, because bubble wrap is fun, but it's not a toy per se. And a Care Bear, certainly not. I don't think Care Bears belong in the Toy Hall of Fame. The game Clue, maybe, because you had to be creative to play Clue. Definitely Dungeons and Dragons. That may be the nascent nerd in me, but it certainly lasted generations, fostered innovation and creativity through play. Fisher-Price Little People, I don't think I ever played, even as a kid, ever played with Little People. So I have no idea whether it did those things. Nerf, nah, not really. Pinball, Rock'em Sock'em Robots. I think I'd put pinball in there. Certainly coloring book. Coloring books definitely lasted through generations. Definitely fostered learning and creativity. I don't know about innovation, but coloring books I would definitely put up there. Sherry, Care Bears don't belong? Shut your mouth. Kimbo says Rock'em Sock'em Robots, Transformers, and coloring books. See, the problem I have is Transformers is just so commercialized. I'm already biased against Transformers. And Rock'em Sock'em Robots, it was too simplistic. You didn't learn anything through Rock'em Sock'em Robots, except to mash that button until it broke. And how many of us broke our Rock'em Sock'em Robots like within 24 hours of owning them? It was just a useless toy. It broke instantly. Binky says D&D, Transformers, and Clue. Wayne says, how would our generation have converted to worshiping Lord Satan without D&D? Sherry says, Nerf what? Nerf is a whole giant company. Probably Nerf balls, Nerf toys. Hiker BC says, Cabbage Patch Kids, first mass hysteria toy, except that Cabbage Patch Kids aren't on this list, Hiker. Pay attention! Jesus, boy. There are adult coloring books now, Monty says. I never played with coloring books much as a kid. I know my sister loved them. I didn't, although I do like the iOS coloring books, the coloring books you can get on your phone. Those are kind of peaceful. I kind of like doing those. I've got several on my phone and on my iPad. And I'll color when I'm like watching a football game. I'm sitting on the couch doing nothing, but I'll just take my thumb and color. But it's an interesting list. So what do you think? What'd you pick out of that list of things? This is interesting. He said, can't stop thinking about this. In Norway, you can see anyone's taxes, but there's a catch. The catch is everyone can also see exactly who's looked at their tax returns. How would you feel about that? Would you want to read the tax returns of your family, friends, neighbors, boss, knowing that they knew you checked out their tax return? I don't know. With the catch, I don't know. Because you obviously would know what the other person made, what they donated, what they claimed for deductions. That's kind of interesting. And to know, your boss would know that you checked out his tax returns. That's really kind of interesting. It goes up there with that, I think it was Sweden, or another Scandinavian country, said that when you donate blood, they track your blood, like everyone does. But when your blood gets used, they send you an email that tells you in a generic kind of way who got your blood. They don't give you a specific person's name, but they tell you that, a white male accident victim got it. I like that idea. I think that would maybe encourage people to donate blood more. But what about tax returns? Would you want to see other people's tax returns if they were then informed that you had looked at their tax returns? Yeah, Sherry, gamified blood donation. Exactly. That's exactly what it is. It's they're gamifying blood donation. And this story, this has gone from a joke to literally terrifying. Samsung is now displaying this message every time you turn on or charge a Galaxy Note 7. Next step will be bricking the phone. Unprecedented. Safety recall notice. Your safety is our highest priority. Power down and stop using this phone. The battery may overheat, posing a fire or burn risk. Visit Samsung's website or call toll-free to learn more. That's kind of scary. Don't you think? That the problem has gotten this bad that they've sent you a message saying stop using the phone. They've gone past, hey, everyone, bring your phone in. They're saying stop using it. That's how dangerous this situation is. That Samsung is out and out telling people the thing that's in your hand right now is a risk to you and others. We've already heard last week, we heard many stories of people traveling, flying, and that announcements were being made to passengers to not turn on your Galaxy Note 7 on the plane because it's that dangerous. It could catch fire inside an airplane. Monty says, can you imagine the hysteria if that kind of message came from Apple about the iPhone? It certainly would be more hysterical than what we're seeing out of the tech media with regards to Samsung. And that's the double standard. That's the double standard we all know is out there about Apple. And remember, Apple had a slightly similar problem years ago. They've had a problem in the past with MacBooks, but not exploding. But yeah, this has gone past Samsung into seriously dangerous territory. If you know of anybody with a Samsung, show them this, or they already know. Tell them to not use the damn thing anymore. There have been some serious issues. Is that Monty making all that noise? I hear Monty. Exactly. Yeah. And then as someone points out in the IRC chat room, turns out fitness trackers and some sex toys have been sending data back to the head office. That's why company with the sex toy thing? Why? Okay, first of all, why do you have an internet-connected sex toy? Your sex toy doesn't need to be on the internet, okay? And why does the company need to collect that data? That's just weird and creepy. Don't, stop, don't. The Internet of Things. Someone pointed out there's a Twitter feed called Internet of Shit. And they pointed out this morning there's now an internet-connected candle. It's literally a candle that you turn on and off with a real flame using your phone. Fuck off. Stop it. No, you don't need this. It messes you when your house is on fire. Exactly. Folks, later on we're going to be talking about depth of field and portrait mode and all kinds of fun photography stuff. Well, I'll explain to you why this is an issue, not an issue, but a story now, and how you can do it now. You're not going to wait for iOS 10 portrait mode to come out of beta. You can do it now with any number of cameras. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about McLaren. We'll talk about macOS 10 with our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com right after this interlude, which is the only way I can describe it. This is your Mac Life. Welcome back, folks. This is Your Mac Life. I am Shawn King, joined on the phone now by our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. How you doing, you handsome bastard?
Yeah.
By the way, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your 60th. It's a milestone for you, isn't it?
Don't be a dick.
What's that?
Don't be a dick.
I'm sorry. 61st. Sorry, I got it wrong by years. Sue me. Now you're a young man celebrating. I think you're celebrating the 4th anniversary of your 50th, right?
Yeah, no, I am 49.
Get out of here. Bullshit.
I am.
Wow, you look so much older.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, I had to. Now, you said earlier that you have been a beta tester of macOS Sierra. It's taken me a while to not say macOS 10 Sierra. Now that it's out and available, does it make a lot of difference to you? Are there a lot of features in it that you seem to think are must-haves? It just feels to me that it's not that big a deal.
Well, see, I think that this is where people really will start to see how all of their stuff is working together.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the big deal. So when you look at Sierra, I love the fact that my watch will unlock the Mac.
Yeah, sure.
I love that. I do. You know, it's just great to be able to walk up to your Mac and it unlocks.
Yeah.
So there's small things like that are huge things for me. You know, surprisingly, having my desktop and documents on iCloud automatically is a big help.
You like that?
Because if I go out, I always know that, I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but most of my stuff is stuffed on the desktop or documents. So I pretty much know I have all of my files if I have my desktop and my documents. So that's great too. You know, I really like that. You know, there's some space saving features and things like that maybe that people don't know how to do that will be done automatically for them.
Yeah.
Those are cool little things that Apple has done for us. So, and it's free.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
You can't beat free with a stick.
You can't beat it off with a stick.
I didn't say beat it off. Hey, dude, come on. It's a family show.
Since when is this a family show? Holy fuck.
No kidding. It's interesting when you go to Apple's website, apple.com/macOS/Sierra, they're really pushing Siri on the macOS. The first several pages, as you scroll through that site, are all about the things you can do with Siri. Now, I think that's really interesting and probably a indication of where Apple thinks that they are going to go with this. Or do you think it's something that Apple thinks their customers want?
Well, I think that voice assistant, voice memory learning, all of that kind of stuff is something that people want.
Yeah.
I don't know that people know everything that they can do with it.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the issue. You know, I tried Siri on the Mac in the first betas, and you know, it wasn't that great, but it's gotten better. But you know, for me to say, play Siri, play Aussie.
Yeah.
Well, you know, by the time Siri does that, okay, playing Aussie, you know, I could have been through a song.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know, so I just go and open it up and do it myself. But, you know, that means that I have to open iTunes myself and look at it, and then I get pissed off.
Get angry, that's right.
You know, so.
For me, I installed macOS Sierra on a backup machine, and because everyone's talking about Siri, I thought, okay, I'll give Siri a try. And the first thing I did was, Siri, open Photos, open the Photos app, and Siri said, you don't have Photos app on your machine. I can search for you. It's right there, Siri. It's in the applications folder. I just closed the computer and went on about my business. It's like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
So for me, Siri was a bust the first time I gave it a try. So I don't know whether Siri, and you and I have talked about this several times before. I'm not a giant Siri user to begin with, so it's not like I use Siri all the time. I set timers and set reminders. That's pretty much it. So that's why I say macOS Sierra, from a Siri point of view, doesn't have a whole lot of interest to me. I don't generally want to talk to Siri.
Yeah, I do on my phone and my watch, but I don't do it a lot on my Mac.
Yeah. It's one of the things I don't care enough about to use. One of the things, though, I'm really looking forward to trying out that Apple showed off in the original announce of this was the idea of copy on one device, paste on another. To me, that's really cool. I love that because I'm constantly finding stuff on, even I'm sitting on the couch and surfing on the iPhone, find a little tidbit of information or a picture or something I want to use somewhere else. What I end up doing is either emailing it to myself or iMessaging it to myself on the iMac. Now being able to just copy it, go to the iMac, and it's there, I think it's kind of a neat thing to do.
Well, you know what? I've been emailing stuff from myself for 20 years.
Yeah,
I don't know if I'll ever get into the habit.
That's right.
Because I just realized when you mentioned that, I emailed stuff to myself today. So, and I'm running all of the new OSs.
Yeah.
So, you know, there you go. I forgot all about it.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's what happens when, you know, you have these habits of stuff that you do and you just keep doing them.
Yeah. Because they work for you. If it works for you, there's no reason to change.
Things like unlock, that's cool. But now all the kids and all the cool kids will be copying and pasting throughout their devices, and
Exactly.
I'll still be emailing stuff to myself.
That's right. That's right. The other thing is that one of us is getting a phone call. Probably you. Probably Tim Cook calling. One of the things that I was very disappointed with was to see that, at least in this version, I'm going to assume it's going to change in future versions, Messages is nowhere near as capable as iMessage on iOS 10. That's kind of disappointing, don't you think?
Well, I don't know how that stuff works. I don't know if they, you know, share some stuff or what they do, but, you know, it could very well be that that all of this new stuff just can't be done on the Mac right now.
Yeah.
You know, that can be done on iOS. So I can honestly do without the balloons and confetti. And,
you didn't like the balloons I sent you for your birthday?
You know, somebody can send balloons and stuff once. After that, you're blocked.
Exactly. That's right. It gets really tiresome. And that's the thing I was saying too, was that unless you have a continuing conversation with that person, those balloons, those graphics keep moving. I'm looking at my iMac screen, and I've got iMessage set off in one corner. And if you send me a graphic, whether it's a GIF or something that's moving, it keeps frickin' moving until it scrolls past the screen, which is really annoying. I know I can delete them, but you can see that gets kind of tiresome and annoying after a while when you're trying to work.
What kind of friends do you have sending you stuff?
I know. It's just
that's what the block button is for. Unless the gifts you're getting you don't want to block, in which case, have at it, man.
Yeah, the problem is I can't afford to block too many people. I'm already blocked enough on Twitter. I don't need to block friends.
Yeah, I hear you.
So it's going to be interesting to see. There's all kinds of articles all over the web. We've linked to them on The Loop. There's all kinds of 60 best pieces of new Sierra stuff. Check it out. Send me emails to onair or yourmaclifeshow.com if you are running macOS Sierra, and let me know what you think. Because, like I said, I haven't started mine up yet, so I'm not quite sure what's going on. Let's move on, though. We woke up this morning to the bizarre news, and tell me if you agree that this is bizarre news, that Apple is allegedly in talks to take over supercar and F1 maker McLaren, according to the Financial Times. What was your thoughts about this when you first heard the story?
My thought was, how cool would that be?
Oh,
but,
man! No!
Well, everybody's doing drawings of these Apple cars, and they're like Yugos, the little bubbles and stuff like that. I think it would be funny as hell if Apple rolled out, like a McLaren type car and said, okay, you can have one for $1.5 million.
It's the Apple Gold Watch McLaren version, yeah.
Exactly. I think that would be hilarious because everybody expects this, $70,000, electric car that's going to putt down the street, and Apple rolls out a McLaren. That would be funny as hell. I'd laugh my ass off.
Is this a real rumor? Do you think this is actually going to happen?
Well, here's what I think. I think just like music and TV, Apple is in touch with a lot of different companies. And I think that they're talking to a lot of different companies about how they would do things, how they could partner, all kinds of different stuff going on. That's what I think. And, is Apple in talks with McLaren? I don't doubt that Apple's been talking to most car makers out there. So, is McLaren the sexiest of the group so far?
No.
Yeah, probably.
I think one of the things is that a lot of the media, even if this is, I actually got a tweet from the guy who wrote this on the Financial Times. He was sort of pissy with me. He said, I stand by the story. I'm like, well, of course you stand by the story. Otherwise, you look like a frickin' moron if you didn't. But one of the problems with these kinds of stories is, like you said, Apple probably is talking to car companies, but we don't know what those conversations are. We don't know if Apple's gone to McLaren and said, hey, we want to buy you, or whether Apple's gone to McLaren and gone, hey, how do you do this?
Yeah.
We don't know what the substantive conversations are. They're just someone saw an Apple exec going into McLaren headquarters and meant, they're buying McLaren.
Yeah. Well, and to be honest, at this point, Apple could buy almost every car company in the world and still have money left over.
Exactly.
So I mean, it's not a big deal for them, but Apple could be talking partnerships. They could be talking almost anything. It could have been an Apple exec walking in to buy one.
Yeah, yeah, that's right, exactly.
I mean, there's no telling what it could be. Of course, the Financial Times is going to stick to its guns with the story, and they could very well be right. We don't know. They could be. I mean, Apple could be holding some kind of talks. It could be talks with the racing team.
Yep.
It could be talks with the racing team over sponsor. I mean, Apple could sponsor an F1 car.
But even that doesn't make any sense because Apple is an American company with a huge footprint in America. Americans don't like F1. They don't watch F1. They don't attend F1.
Well,
F1 is a non-entity. So why would they sponsor a non-entity?
That's not true.
If Apple's going to sponsor car racing, they'd sponsor NASCAR.
Hold on. Shut up. No, they wouldn't.
Yes, they would.
Listen, what's the percentage of international sales that come to Apple?
63% outside the U.S.
Right. I rest my case right there.
And you have no case.
And shut up, I'm not done yet. And there is now an F1 race in Texas and it is packed full of people, packed. So there you go. Now I rest my case now.
By that same logic, then Apple should buy MotoGP motorcycle racing, because on the exact same course in Austin, Texas, the Circuit of the Americas, you didn't even know what it was called, you pillock. They have motorcycle racing there, and it's packed too. So by your logic, they should buy MotoGP. Before
you ask me another question, I have to go in and look up pillock. I mean, seriously, I'm a few beer in. Just call me an asshole if you want.
That's right, exactly. Use small words. But that's what I'm saying. It makes no sense for Apple to do this. It's such a niche market. If they're going to sponsor something, you'd think they'd sponsor something bigger than F1. Maybe soccer. It would make more sense for Apple to buy Manchester United or to buy a UEFA team and put their logo on the chest of a soccer team than it would on an F1 car.
Well, or sponsor the World Cup or,
exactly.
something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. If that's the reason why they're doing this. Sponsoring a car makes no sense.
I know Americans are going to freak out over this, but American football is not the biggest sport in the world. It is actually soccer. That's the biggest sport in the world. And they could make a big splash. But you know who has that wrapped up? Heineken.
Yeah, that's right.
Heineken has that wrapped up tight. And they sponsor the World Cup of everything. I'm going to make the World Cup of slippers, and Heineken will sponsor it for $1 gazillion because they sponsor the World Cup of rugby, the World Cup of field hockey, the World Cup of everything. And whatever Heineken doesn't sponsor, Red Bull does.
Yep.
Anything to do with extreme or racing, Red Bull's got wrapped up.
Wayne says in the IRC chat room, Apple's self-driving car wins F1 would be a pretty big headline for them.
Oh, my God.
That's never going to happen.
F1
is never going to be self-driving cars.
That would be hilarious. I would love that.
It's not going to happen.
I would love that.
There's no way F1 is ever going to go to a self-driving car championship. Nobody would watch it.
My favorite driver used to be Nigel Mansell.
Yeah.
I used to love Nigel Mansell. He was a great driver. He was just a crazy Brit that would cut you off. And I know that everybody likes Senna and those guys, but Nigel Mansell was my guy.
And we know why you didn't like Villeneuve.
Well,
he's French.
Yeah, I don't know what I don't know what else to say. I don't even want to talk anymore about that.
The other story. Go ahead.
I was going to say, although, obviously Jacques and his father were very talented drivers.
Yep.
Yeah.
The other story that came alongside the McLaren story, this was from the New York Times, Apple allegedly in talks to buy self-balancing motorcycle outfit Lit Motors. That was more ridiculous than the McLaren rumors.
But again, we don't know what they're talking about.
What technology that you believe in a self-balancing all-electric motorcycle besides the batteries? First of all, let's be clear. This is not a freaking motorcycle, okay? It's got 2 wheels, but it's got 2 doors, air conditioning, and airbags. That's a car. Stop calling it a motorcycle.
Wow.
What technology could they possibly have that Apple either A, doesn't already have, they already know about batteries, and self-balancing? It's too niche a market. Again, Apple would never sell a vehicle like this because the market for it is too small. If you want a motorcycle, you're going to buy a motorcycle. If you want a car, you're going to buy a car. No one's going to go, hey, let's take the worst of both and I'll buy that.
Jesus Christ, angry much?
Yes!
Yeah, I'm going to buy you those grumpy emoticons for iMessage.
I saw those and thought, I should buy those. Then went, it's $1.50. Fuck it. I can't be bothered.
Those are pretty good, I mean, they're the iMessage stickers.
Yeah,
that's what they're called. They're stickers. I actually know the guy who made them in England, and he's a great guy. But when I saw them, I thought, holy shit, They were made for me
That's
because
right.
it just says like whatever, and so, it's great stuff.
Yeah.
Great.
I think stickers would be more popular if they were easier to get at. Anyway, so this New York Times story, I think, is another silly story that maybe somebody saw Eddie Q walk into Lit Motors, and Eddie just wanted to buy one of these things. People, Apple's buying Lit Motors. Why? Because they've already hired some guys from Lit Motors. So they already hired some folks from Tesla, too. Doesn't mean they're buying Tesla.
And Tesla has hired some folks from Apple. I mean,
Exactly.
it's an ongoing thing. It goes back and forth. I mean, honestly, Shawn, you know this as well as I do. In a week, there could be an announcement that Apple has bought Lit and McLaren.
Yeah.
And it could happen. We don't know. But we could go on for the next decade and never hear about this again.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely.
And that's just the way it goes because we don't know. Apple could release a car and, like they did with Maps, it could say at the bottom, like Maps says, compiled with data from TomTom. This could say compiled with wheels from McLaren or, I mean, we just don't know. I mean, Apple could buy some technology or license some technology from McLaren on, I don't know, suspension or something like that. Who knows?
Speaking of
We
cars,
just don't know.
I think the most interesting story I read last week was Lyft's president says the majority of rides will be in self-driving cars by 2021.
Not with me.
That's only 5 years from now.
Oh, math is hard.
Fuck you.
Math is so hard.
Shut up, man. I was thinking about something else. 2025. That's only 5 years now. I cannot believe. Now, granted, this guy is the president of Lyft, and his job is to pump up the whole self-driving car thing. But there's no way that the majority of rides will be self-driving by 2021.
Here's the thing. I think once it starts, and it hasn't started yet, once it starts, it's going to flood. That's what's going to happen. Yeah. Yep. It's going to be like, something like, I don't know, flash drives.
Yeah.
When flash drives came, people were saying, what? You can put a gigabyte of data on that little thumb drive? And then all of a sudden they're everywhere. Companies are giving them away at trade shows. Yeah. It's just going to flood. And I think that's what's going to happen with self-driving cars. All of a sudden, one is going to come out somewhere. And then it's just going to be.
And there was a story that I think the American Department of Transportation actually put out 15 data points for self-driving manufacturers to pay attention to. They're apparently leaving a lot of the regulations open-ended, but they've told the manufacturers that, hey, these are the things we're going to be paying attention to. So at least the government is starting to make noise about paying attention to this kind of stuff. Whether it happens in 5 years, I don't know. I don't think that we're ready psychologically. I don't think we're ready financially. I don't think we're ready governmentally, regulation-wise. I think there's too many variables that are unknown right now to make that time frame, that close time frame, 5 years is nothing, to make that close time frame a reality.
Okay, 5 years ago, we didn't even have Uber and Lyft.
True.
So we've come a long way in 5 years.
Fair point.
And it keeps speeding up. And can also consider the fact that in Pittsburgh, they are already using a couple of autonomous cars. Now, there are people in the cars.
Two people in the cars.
Yes, and good. There are people from the company in the cars to make sure nothing goes wrong. And that's good. That's what we want. But the car is driving itself to your location. So, it doesn't seem that off, that 5 years. You never know what's going to happen in 5 years. I mean, what are they saying now? Technology is doubling or something every year and a half now?
That's Moore's Law, you doofus.
No. Technology, the scope of, I forget what it's called. Oh, fucking beer. No, you know what I mean? Like where we've come from to where we are going is is multiplying faster than what it ever has before.
Sure. Yeah. I kind of understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Not
So
enough to care, but
wow, holy shit, wow. Sorry, let me just take that knife out of my back. Jesus Christ!
Did you see the story that the governments, the politicians here in British Columbia and Washington State are proposing a driverless highway from Vancouver to Seattle? That's a 3-hour drive. And what they're proposing is that in the route from along I-95 outside of Seattle, I-5 outside of Seattle, and Highway 99 here in Vancouver, that at some point in the future there would be an autonomous car lane. Right now, autonomous cars would use the HOV lane, but eventually that would change to be an autonomous car only lane. I think we're going to see a lot more of that kind of stuff, because that's an easy transition for governments to make. Say, hey, we'll put the autonomous cars in this safe zone over here along with the other HOV people, and then as they become more popular, we'll open that lane up to just autonomous cars.
Okay, first of all, HOV sounds like a disease, and secondly, you would get people like me that would fuck with the autonomous cars all the time. Like I would wander over into their lane and pull back, and
I guarantee I would. I guarantee I will. You put a big sign in your cars is self-driving, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to mess with you now. Yeah. I'm just all over the place. Because you know what? I've seen it on the motorcycle. The motorcycle, a lot of newer cars have got those blind spot detection systems. You know how they'll flash in the side mirrors.
I actually like that.
I like it too, because what I can do is I can sneak up on your car, because it makes beeping noises inside your car, and I'll just move in and out of that thing to make your side mirror light up.
I've never seen one with beeping noises. I would turn that shit off. But if you're in a self-driving car, that's one thing. If you're in a self-driving car in the back seat, I will put you through the windshield.
That's right.
I will put you through that will be the worst drive of your life, because I will slam my brakes on every half a mile and make your car just ditch into the ground every half a mile.
Yeah, we'd be dicks with self-driving cars. It's not just
self-driving cars are okay. If you're in the back seat, I'm fucking with you.
That's right. And trust me,
I'm telling you.
Jim and I are Canadians, so we're the nice ones. There's going to be a lot worse people out there. And that's the thing, though. We're going to have to change. That's why I'm saying that our laws are going to have to catch up. As folks in the RC chat room are saying, MacMan, there should be stiff fines for assholes who do that. Yeah, and I agree with you. But until those fines are there, we're going to do that shit. Assholes are going to do that stuff.
No, I think the self-driving cars are coming, and honestly, I've watched videos of self-driving cars from different car companies, and they all look amazingly more safe than the drivers that are on the road right now.
Yeah, I agree.
To be honest. And if they can recognize that your motorcycle is there, you'll be more safe, because I used to drive a motorcycle, and I know that people see you and they still pull out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So there will be laws, and there will be different things that happen. But until then, I do not agree with the people that sit in the back seats of their self-driving cars. I will fuck with those people.
That I agree should be illegal. Yeah.
I think that you should be responsible for your vehicle, like the Uber and Lyfts that are testing self-driving right now with drivers. You should be responsible for your vehicle at all times.
But that's what I'm saying, is that we need the laws to catch up with that stuff. There will be a law that says if there's no one behind the wheel of these cars, the car won't operate. If you climb in the back to have sex or whatever it is, because someone's going to frickin' do that, the car shuts down or pulls off to the side of the road. So our laws need to catch up to this stuff, and I don't think it's going to happen inside 5 years.
Well, you never know. We'll see.
But as a motorcyclist, I'm the first guy. I'll be at first in line to help folks get into self-driving cars. Because as a motorcyclist, I want people to be in self-driving cars because it makes it safer for me as a motorcyclist.
Yep.
Folks,
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's fine.
Folks, I've been talking to Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. He's here each and every week, whether he wants to be or not, because I got pictures of him with a goat.
Yep.
Happy birthday, Jim. It was great talking to you again tonight.
Thanks, man.
All right, see you, bye. If you get a chance, Jay Dalrymple on Twitter, send him a birthday message. His birthday was on Monday, but maybe you didn't know. Jay Dalrymple, J-D-A Dal, D-A-L-R-Y-M-P-L-E, Jay Dalrymple. In our starting point photography segment on tonight's show, did you see the story over at, let me find the story for you guys, because it's a good story. Matthew Panzarino of TechCrunch has written a story about the new portrait mode in iOS 10. And it's kind of fun. It's kind of a funny story, if only because photographers, not snobs, but photographers, myself included, see this kind of stuff and go, yeah, but photographers have been able to do this stuff for years. This is not something that's new. This is not something that's different. This is not something that is special from Apple. And people all the time make fun of Apple for making these pronouncements of things that Apple, they don't claim, but make it sound like they were the first ones to do this. This is definitely not something Apple's come up with. This is not a concept, an idea, a process. There's in no way, shape, or form is this something that's original to Apple. Now, I'm not saying Apple has said that. What I'm saying is that a lot of folks are attributing those kinds of things to Apple when, in fact, there's no reason to whatsoever. It's up on TechCrunch.com. It's called Hands On with the iPhone Plus's crazy new portrait mode. I'm sorry, this is not crazy. This is not new. It's new for Apple, but it's not new. Those of you who have any point and shoot, have any consumer-level DSLR, already have portrait mode. It's not a factor of the iPhone 7S. It's not a factor of dual-lens cameras. It's not a factor of software. It's a factor of the lens that you have and the camera that you have and the settings thereof. So don't think this is something magical that Apple does, okay? It's an easy effect to create on your own. If you have any DSLR camera, whether it be a mirrorless camera like this or a Canon Rebel or a Nikon D3300, whatever it is, if you've got one of these DSLR cameras, you can create this effect easily. The effect is this blurry background. And it's called portrait mode because it's often used in portraiture. And the idea is that as beginners, it's certainly something you should take into consideration. Simplify your photography. All right? Take a picture of one thing. Focus on the one thing. Have your viewer looking at one thing in your photography. So the idea is you fill the frame, like a portrait, with the person's face. Right? And everything behind them is unimportant because it's a portrait. It's about their face. That's the subject matter. That's what's important in your shot. Is this person's face, their eyes, their lips, their hair, whatever it might be. That's what's important. So you don't want to distract from what's important with things that are obviously unimportant. So that's what portrait mode does. If you have a camera that's got a little dials on the top, I guarantee you're going to have something called scene mode. And this camera, like many cameras, has a scene mode. Let me see if I can't find the scene mode here. It's got like a dozen modes. And there it is. There's portrait mode on this camera. I think you can actually ask the camera what portrait mode is. For taking a portrait-style shot. Well, that's helpful. But that's the idea. You want to get as close. Sorry. You want to fill the frame with the person's face. That's the idea of portrait mode. When you set your camera to that mode, your camera automatically creates that blurry background. It does it on its own because you've told it to do it. You've told it that I'm pointing my camera at a thing, one thing. Usually it's a face, but it can be a flower, it can be a dog, it can be a statue, it doesn't matter. But you've told the camera that first and foremost, focus on this thing in the foreground and make everything in the background blurry. Now, that's a function that the camera will set on its own, but if you also have a camera that's got this aperture priority mode, where it says set the aperture automatically, so it's an A on top of the camera, AV on Canons, you can then mess around with the aperture of the camera. Remember, we talked about this before. Aperture is the description of that opening in your lens, and every camera has an opening. That's how light comes in. And many cameras, not the iPhone, but many cameras, you can adjust the aperture, make it bigger and make it smaller. The bigger the aperture, obviously, the more light that comes in. Confusingly, that number that describes the size of the aperture is the reverse of the size of the aperture. So if you have a big aperture, the number is small. So you've heard that the new iPhone 7 Plus has two lenses, one with aperture, I think, 2.8, and the other with aperture 1.8. And what that means is that's just the size of the lens. One is open wider than the other. The wider it's open, like I said, the more light that comes in. But the wider that it's open, the more blur you'll have in the background. That's called depth of field. This is where things get a little confusing. You got to stay with me on this one. The way I've always described it to my students is to imagine a picket fence or a ruler. And the aperture corresponds to, let's say, inches on the ruler. So if imagine your mind's eye, a ruler on a diagonal in front of you. It goes from 0 inches right in front of you up to 12 inches further away. Imagine your aperture is inches. So if you have an aperture of 2, think of it as being 2 inches. If an aperture of 6, 8, think of it as 8 or 6 inches. That's what's going to be in focus. Everything behind that 6 inches, everything in front of that 6 inches is going to be blurry. That's your depth of field or your depth of focus. So if I've got an object in front of me and I set my aperture to f8, it means everything 8 inches before and after that object will be in focus. Everything else will be blurry. It's easy to test this out on your own. Simple. This is how I learned what aperture does with my camera. I took my beloved stuffed animals, my little penguins, put them on my kitchen table, and I put one penguin in front of the other. I put the penguins a couple of feet away from each other, and I focused on the front penguin with aperture 1.8. Took a picture focusing on the front penguin. Then I changed my aperture to f2 or 2.8, whatever the next one was. Took a picture. Aperture 3, took a picture. Aperture 4, took a picture. So I took 22 pictures. When I brought the pictures into my computer, I could see the progression of aperture. I could see the depth of field get bigger as I made the aperture number bigger. That make sense? Monty says, why is depth of field such a difficult concept for people to grasp? Because they don't explain it. Because our eyes don't work that way. Depth of field is not a real world thing. When I look at something, I don't see the background is blurry. It is, but our eyes don't work that way, so we don't comprehend it. So this ability of iOS 10 and iPhone 7 Pluses is not new to them. It's something you can do with any point and shoot, with any DSLR. This is a very common technique that's been used forever. Monty says, I did the same test, only using a yardstick instead of penguins. Exactly. So the easiest thing to do is to play around with your own camera and test this out. But just put a couple objects, salt shakers, whatever it might be. If you got penguins, use penguins. Stuffed animals. And just take a picture and change your aperture one setting. Take another picture. Just keep doing that. Then when you bring them into the computer, you'll see the difference. And the way I always explain it to people is to think about aperture. Decide how many things in your shot you want in focus and use that as your aperture. So if you have one thing in focus, make your aperture as low as you can. Now, not very few cameras, very few lenses can shoot at f1. Most of us will have a kit lens that came with a camera, and probably the lowest aperture it'll do is 3.5, maybe, somewhere around there. But go to the lowest aperture. If you have two things, go to one aperture higher. If you have three things, just change your aperture based on the number of things, people, trees, flowers, dogs, whatever it might be, that's in focus. When you practice, this is the thing I'm always beating on you guys. Learn, focus, practice. When you learn about this, when you focus on doing it, when you practice doing it, it becomes more obvious to you. Canon made a 50-0.95 lens. I saw someone today is reviewing a 0.85 lens, which is just, for the camera nerds out there, that's utterly insane. Let's look at Matthew's actual pictures. And I know Matthew. I'm not a friend of Matthew, but I've known Matthew for years. And I know that he's got a new son. Where's a picture of his kid? There's his gorgeous wife and his cute little baby boy, Enzo. What a great name. The kid's name is Enzo. Enzo Panzerino. I think it's just cool. I just do. But if you look at the pictures, he is demonstrating portrait mode in iOS 10 beta. And what he's saying is, look at this tree. Look at the blur on this tree. Well, again, this happens with a DSLR when you change the aperture. But what I'm critiquing here is his composition. This is a beautiful woman and a gorgeous baby and a shitty photo. Get away from the tree, dude! There's this tree sticking out of your kid's head. All it would take for Matthew to make this a better picture is simply move to his left. If he took half a step to the left, look at the background. Look at the difference in the background. He'd have a semi-pleasing green background behind his wife and his son instead of a frickin' tree growing out of his kid's head. And he does, this is a very, very common problem with beginning photographers. We look at the thing we're shooting, we don't look behind the thing. Before you push the shutter button, just take a look at the edges of your image. Look behind the people, the things, the flowers, the car that you're shooting. He does this over and over again. Look at the shot of his little girl. It's a great shot of, a little girl going off to school. But because he didn't move, he just stood there. You can tell he's standing up. Imagine this shot if he'd gotten down on his hands and knees and taken this picture. How much different the shot would be. Look at this shot of his daughter up against this fence. It doesn't matter how much blur he's got. We can still see things sticking up out of his kid's head. Simply turn around. Get her away from the distracting background. Just move. Move your feet. Move your subject. Move away from the distractions. Look behind the thing. Look behind the person and see if there's things back there that you don't want in your shot. Another perfect image of this. His daughter's being cute, being sweet. Look at the car in the background. There's not enough blur to get rid of that car. And by the way, blur is also a function, this depth of field is also a function of how far away the background is. So there's a subject here. The further away the background is, the blurrier it will be with this depth of field stuff. So if the background is right behind the person, if you're shooting someone and they're standing up against a wall, that wall won't be blurry. All you need to do is have them move towards you 4 or 5 feet, and that wall becomes blurry. If they were standing in front of a rhododendron, big, huge rhododendron, if they're standing right in front of it, no blur. Have them move 2 feet, 4 feet in front of the rhododendron, then you'll get blur. So blur, the depth of fields, is a function of how far away the background is from the subject you're shooting. But this is an example of not looking behind the subject. Now, granted, this is his daughter acting goofy, so he just took the shot. You know, these are the shots that dads have to take. But if you're composing this shot, you look behind and see there's a car parked there. You change the shot. You move away from the shot. The other thing he could do to make this a better shot is to simply, so I can't find it. I don't know if I can do it. Hang on. I'm going to move this to a new tab and see if this will work. Zoom in on the picture. You zoom in enough, you crop this to that image, you've still got a great picture of a cute kid doing something goofy, but you've gotten rid of the car in the background. Now this is almost a usable image. So keep that in mind when you're taking pictures. Focus on the thing, the object that's in front of you, but then just take a quick look behind them. Just look over their shoulder, through the camera lens. I always look in the 4 corners. That's the thing I've gotten used to doing, is when I'm, just before I push the button, I look at the picture without the camera. I compose it in my mind first. Then I bring the camera to my eye, and then I look again in the camera and see if the camera has picked up anything that I don't like in the shot. Oh, I hear someone else in the chat room. Who dat? Is it David? So keep these kind of things in mind. This is the kind of stuff that you can do automatically on your own using your, thank you, Wayne. Wayne muted David Dykestall. And the further away the background is, the blurrier it will be. This shot of what I assume is his dogs, kind of a cute shot, but again, get low. If he'd been on his stomach with these 2 dogs, it might have been a more interesting picture. But the background isn't as blurry as he thinks it can be or wants it to be, because the background isn't far enough away from the dogs. Monty says, hard edges and angles behind your subject are almost always less preferable than soft edges. Sherry says, if he'd been on his stomach, the dogs have been licking his face. That's true. That's a good point, Sherry. If you get in your tummy with dogs, especially these little dogs, yeah, they're probably going to jump up and just start licking your face. So keep these kind of things in mind when you are taking pictures. That portraits are about one thing, that you can change the aperture on your camera on your own. You can get depth of field portrait mode right now in your camera using aperture priority mode or using the priority modes, the scene modes on your camera. And then look behind the person or the thing. That's probably the most important. Look behind. See what's in the background. See if that background is pleasing, is distracting, has things that you don't want in your image. And then finally, you can always crop. You can always crop down, even if the crop is just the person's face and nose, because that's the most important part of it. So give those things a try. So do I have any questions from folks? Let's see. Let me go to my emails. As always, send me emails to onair@yourmaclifeshow.com if you want to talk about stuff that we've mentioned on the show. Or if you have any questions during the week, I'm always happy to get emails from folks during the week. Scott Thrift has an app rant. This is Scott down in Sydney, Australia. Like most people who have iOS devices, I always have a couple of mindless little games loaded up to entertain myself on public transport. However, I've recently noticed that a lot more games are starting to creep into the App Store that are unable to be finished without making an in-app purchase. I know this isn't a new problem, but I also know that for a while, Apple required app developers to disclose if a game could be finished without in-app purchases or not. I did a search, and it is technically still required, but in practice, no one seems to be monitoring it. I've tried to find a contact email address for the App Store to report a company who is breaching the policy. There doesn't seem to be a way of contacting Apple about issues like this. Scott, the easiest thing to do, feedback@apple.com. That's the easiest email address for anything you might have, any concerns that you have with Apple. There's no guarantees, but that's the easiest address to get a hold of folks with. I mentioned, this is from Scott Randall. By the way, I wanted to say a big shout out to the nice folks at the Long Island Macintosh user group. I was on, I did a presentation via video for them last Friday? It was last Friday. As always, had a great time. Love talking to the LIMAC guys. They're my favorite mug out there on Long Island. So big hi to all the folks at LIMAC. He says, Scott Randall says, I mentioned to you I'm not an advocate for year-round schooling. Let me explain why it can't and really shouldn't happen. Economics. All the teachers' contracts all over the country would have to be renegotiated from the 10-month contract they have now to a 12-month contract. Well, frankly, that's not that big a deal, Scott. The summer recreation industry would fight it because it would hurt them badly. Okay, I'll grant you that. You're right. Places that Disneyland and that kind of stuff would attempt to fight it. More is not always better. I've been both a parent and a teacher. My wife is a school nurse. I always worked summers doing something different. My wife always worked the summer as a camp nurse so my son could attend. Not everything of value is learned in the classroom. My kids learned a lot of different things in the camp environment. Most schools, at least here, provide summer activities for students at very little cost. Well, mine didn't. The poor schools don't. If parents can't afford even that, the schools work something out for them. Well, in my case, parents couldn't afford it and schools didn't have summer activities. The kids need a change from the school environment. I don't buy that one. I don't buy that kids need change from school because other countries, notably Japan, do this 12-month schooling. Their kids don't seem to need a change from schooling. Plus, you still give them a 2-week vacation, and they still get their other vacation days throughout the year, the 2 weeks at Christmas, the usual vacations everyone gets, and you'd get a 2-week vacation in middle of July, August. After the summer, they come back fresh and ready to learn. Oh, dude, you went to a different school than I did. Because after the summer, I did not come back fresh and ready to learn. As for myself as a teacher, when the summer ended, I was always ready and enthusiastic to start teaching again, to try new things I thought of during the summer. But that could happen regardless. So I don't buy that argument either. Now, someone mentioned the kids being needed to work on the farm. Well, guess what? In many areas, they still are. Less than 5% of the U.S. population still works on farms. So that's not a good argument for kids in urban areas taking 3 months off to go to school. It used to be, but it's no longer a valid argument. Students really more aggressive about learning can take advantage of summer classes to get ahead. Yes, if those students had that offered to them. I wasn't. I don't know of anyone else who was, but I certainly in my school district didn't matter how much you loved learning. School closed up in June, open up again in September. There was no access to classes unless you were a summer student, one of the dumb kids who didn't pass their grade. There was no summer school for the smart kids where I was from. But thanks for your thoughts, Scott. I appreciate it. Always interested to hear what folks say about these kinds of things. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying you're wrong. We have different viewpoints, obviously. Binky says, I came back ready to cry. Wayne says, 2 to 3 months summer vacation is a terrible lie to raise kids with. Most adults are lucky to get 2 weeks in North America. MacMan, if you have thousands of teachers like the New York City schools you do, you're going to be looking at millions of extra dollars just to pay the teachers. Yeah, you are. The point being, now, granted, I'm a Canadian socialist communist bastard, but wouldn't the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? For example, the parents of kids who are out of school for 3 months, they have to get some sort of child care, right? They've got to find someone to take care of their kids. Maybe in the summer months we use substitute teachers, that the regular teachers go on their vacation, but we bring in subs. Or, fuck it, raise taxes. Because I think in the end, we come out of school with, in theory, smarter kids, at least more knowledgeable kids. Binky, no, let the little bastards dig in the dirt or play for a change. Teacher salaries compensate for that, so they get paid a year's salary across 9 months. Yep. Kimbo, there you go. You want to be a parent? Learn how to parent. Not sure what that means, Kimbo. But I don't see a good reason that kids need a 3-month vacation when they could be learning more stuff. That's just me. MacMan, here and everywhere else now, teachers are contracted for 9 months but paid over 12 months. Arkstein says, sorry, Shawn, parents need to have their lovely, terrific tots at home 3 months of the year or give teachers child support payments on top of their salaries. Parents only have to deal with the kids they've had. Teachers have to deal with 24 folks' special little flowers. Yeah, but they have to deal with them anyway. So I'm not sure what the point is there. Wayne says, Shawn, you're assuming they would be learning. Yeah, but we assume they're going to be learning 9 months out of the year. Why not assume they're going to learn 12 months out of the year? Anyway, it's an interesting point. Send me emails to onair@yourmaclifeshow.com. I don't know the solution to it. I just know, I believe, kids don't need a 3-month vacation. Binky, and there's no proof that somehow they're going to actually suddenly improve teaching or learning by dumping summer break. No, there's no proof they're not either. So let's give it a try. Because other countries do it and are very successful at doing it. They're going to teach the same content across 12 months instead of 9 months, Binky says. That's bullshit. You just have a different syllabus for the 3 months. It's just a different semester. I'm going to teach the same stuff when you tell the teachers, here's what you teach for these 3 months, here's what you teach for these 3 months. No, I'm not going to teach the same stuff. And quite honestly, teachers get burned out too. Yeah. We all get burned out. Everyone gets burned out in their jobs. That's why you get 2 months vacation in your job. Sorry, two weeks vacation in your job. Unless you somehow think that teachers are different from cops and longshoremen and everyone else who gets only 2 weeks vacation. I love teachers. I think teachers should be paid $500,000 a year. But I don't think they're special flowers that need 3 months of vacation in order to decompress from teaching our little lovelies. I think that's shortchanging teachers. Good discussion, guys. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. That's it for tonight's show. I want to say thanks very much, as always, to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. If you have any questions, comments about anything we talk about here on the show, as always, on air at yourmaclifeshow.com. And a big thank you to all you folks who tuned in live, especially you folks who tuned in live I appreciate you the mostest. Thanks very much, folks, for being here on this Wednesday evening. As always, I've been Shawn King, and you've been listening to Your Mac Life. See ya!